Jim, do we have representation from all the departments? And do we have a quorum?
We do have representation from all departments, and we do have quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Turn the mic on. Good morning, everybody. This is the February 15th, 2023 meeting of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Can we, Mr. Adams, can you call the roll?
Sir, Chair Shapiro,
Present.
Commissioner Giraldo,
Present.
Commissioner Washington.
Present.
I know we're missing Dorner. I did not see Commissioner Bailey. Is she joining us?
She's planning to, but we have not seen her yet.
This, Jim and Chair, this is Jessica. I'm on the phone with Commissioner Bailey now. She's having some technical difficulties trying to join.
I did as well. She may tell her to use the 10 a.m. link.
Okay, yeah, she said she received a message to say she's on hold, so
Okay.
I'll follow up with that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have Chair Zients on or not?
I don't think so.
Okay. Commissioner Hill,
Yes, here.
Commissioner Pinheiro,
Here.
Commissioner Presley.
Here?
Is Commissioner Branson on?
She's having trouble with the link.
Okay. That is quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next, I would look for a motion to approve the commission agenda.
I move that we approve the commission agenda from February 14th as amended with the addition of item number 5.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Adams, please call the roll.
Chair Shapiro,
I vote yes.
Commissioner Giraldo,
I vote yes.
Commissioner Washington,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Pinheiro,
Aye.
Commissioner Presley.
Aye.
That is 6-0, 4 absent.
Thank you. And next, I would look for a motion to approve the commission minutes from January 18 and February 2nd.
So moved?
Second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Presley. I don't know who made the second, for the record.
Oh, I was one of the seconds.
All right, we'll take that.
Second one. You beat me. You beat me.
We'll take the motion by Commissioner Presley, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Adams, if you could call the roll.
Chair Shapiro,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington,
I will abstain. I was absent.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Pinheiro,
Aye.
Commissioner Presley.
Aye.
That would be 5 in favor, 1 abstention, 4 absent. Does that pass?
Thank you. We have, and I believe that's fine from a legal perspective because it's a majority of those who are present who voted. Council, any concerns with that?
None at all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Under general announcements, there's a number of items that are in your packet. The one thing I want to note is the last one, which is financial disclosure filing. This is a requirement, and I believe it is due by April
30.
30th. Okay. Just a reminder, folks, to follow up with that as well. Next, we have committee minutes, board reports. This is for information only. Is there anything that we need to bring before the commission on this, or is this just in our packet for our information?
Just for information.
Okay, thank you. And next, we're going to go into closed session. So let me read this notice pursuant to the Maryland General Provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B9. A closed session is proposed to consider matters relating to collective bargaining negotiations in order to protect and promote the public interest by preserving privileged and confidential deliberations required to manage ongoing collective bargaining negotiations. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved for the reasons you stated in your statement.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to go in closed session. Vice Chair Bailey, good to see you. We just got you on, and now we're going into closed session. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Adams, if you could call the roll.
Chair Shapiro?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey?
She voted aye.
Commissioner Giraldo?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Pinheiro?
Aye.
Commissioner Presley?
Aye.
7-0, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll see you all in closed session.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. He's good company.
There I am.
Looks like we have a quorum. Mr. Adams, how we doing?
I am still. Please bear with me.
Take your time.
All right, all of our commissioners in here?
Okay. Folks, we are back in open session. All commissioners are here. The commission has returned to open session after concluding its closed session. In closed session, the commission discussed matters related to collective bargaining negotiations with the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 30. We have a number of action items as we come back to our open session. We will get to the resolutions, but let's go in the order that we have on our agenda. So our first action item is Resolution 23-02, Chevy Chase SD easement. There's staff presentation on this. There doesn't need to be. I'm just wondering if there is.
Ivy, you're on mute.
My apologies. I can go over it very briefly if you like. If not, then we may proceed the direction.
Commissioners, any questions on this item?
Yeah, I just have a question. In the actual request memorandum submitted to us, it talked about the PEPCO easement, but I understand there's also a stormwater management easement here, and are those somehow jurisdictionally different for that different treatment?
So the easements, two easements are being requested from Prince George's County Department of Inspections and Enforcement. And they're going to be responsible for the maintenance for the easement, for the storm drain easement and for the hot lot at the park, and then the road improvements. And then the PEPCO easement is the public utility easement to keep the standard 10-foot PUE for dry utility access and maintenance.
Okay, but the resolution that we're approving contains both of those. The memorandum didn't contain both of them, but we're going by the resolution, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions on this item? If there's no other questions, I would look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Resolution 23-02 Chevy Chase SD easement.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Adams, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey.
I think she's just coming back on. I'd continue with a roll call.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
Vote aye.
Vice Chair of Science.
Aye.
Commissioner Branson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Pinero.
Aye.
Commissioner Presley.
Aye.
Circling back around to Commissioner Bailey, second call.
We're okay without her.
Okay. That would be 8 and 2 absences.
Thank you. Next item is Resolution 23-03. This is the RAISE grant application from the U.S. Department of Transportation with matching commission funds. Ms. Manival?
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name's Kristen Manival, and I'm Senior Counsel in the Office of General Counsel. There is a working group comprised of members of Montgomery Parks and Prince George's Department of Parks and Recreation that have been working collaboratively over a period to put together a grant request to the Federal Department of Transportation, and the program is called Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. The acronym is RAISE. And so my role today has just been to help that group put together this resolution 2303, which is before you. But I have here with us today is Eugenia Mercer, and she's the grants manager in Department of Parks and Recreation. And she's been spearheading the collaborative with DPR and Montgomery Parks. And she's here to give you 90-second presentation about the RAISE grant, including matching funds and how the two departments have been working together. Eugenia?
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to present the RAISE grant resolution 23-03. My name, as she mentioned, for the record, is Eugenia Mercer, and I'm the grants manager for this project. I have served as the liaison with our collaborating partners, the National Park Service, NPS, and DDOT. This project is a wonderful example of a multi-jurisdictional effort to enhance safety, expand trails, and promote non-modal transportation. In this resolution, we are seeking board support to submit an application to the federal government, the Department of Transportation, for the amount of $25 million with a match of $34 million. Specifically, for the commission, it looks like $16,225,000 with a combined, and that's from CIP funding. And then there's $10 million that we have already received in state legislation to fund the Central Avenue connector, which is part of this project. And again, today we're seeking approval to submit this application, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mercer. Questions for Ms. Mercer related to this item?
Yeah, I was wondering, the 16 million additional number is more than the minimum of the grant of the match, and I understand that kind of makes a better application, but how did that particular number was arrived at?
The number was arrived from projects that are already slotted in our CIP budget for enhancements to various trail sites. And its efforts, this is our third application, and the commission should know this. It has been highly qualified each cycle before and went before the secretary. But the funding has been allocated in our CIP budgets for various years for enhancements to the trail. So it represents that number. And again, this project is a multi-year project, so it will also be included in future budgets.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, Commissioners? Thank you for all the good work. If there's no other questions, then I would look for a motion.
I move approval.
Second?
And I second approval of resolution.
I think Commissioner Hill beat you to the punch, Commissioner Washington. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Zients. We have a second by Commissioner Hill. Is there any discussion?
I know it's a little hard trying to follow my Jeopardy Square cues.
I tell you, I'm with you. Any further discussion on this wonderful motion? No?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment after we vote, but let's vote.
You can make it now if you want.
I was wondering, among the programs here I noted for RAISE was a plant facility for PG County parks. And Montgomery County Parks already has that out at Pope Farm. And I'm just wondering whether there's economies of scale and, and other advantages to M-NCPPC having one facility for that rather than two.
We have our representatives from Department of Parks and Recreation here, or Ms. Mercer, maybe you can answer this as well.
I will defer to the technicalities on some of the portions. I know the broader scope in which we are talking about, connectivity, so.
Mr. Director Tyler or Deputy Director Carter or anyone on the Prince George's side, if you can educate us just in a in a nutshell about what we have in terms of some kind of native plant farming that we do on the Prince George's side? Do we have the equivalent of what's going on the Montgomery side?
I think, Lauren Bell, you're here still, right?
I'm here. Hello.
Okay. Can you
Do you
speak
want me
on
to
that
take this
matter?
one?
I know you are a sustainability expert.
But I've got this, it may be and Lauren, feel free if you have the info, it may be an operations question that Mr. Carter might have the information for, but however you want to provide us the information, please.
Yeah, I will let Lauren go ahead and do that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bell?
Okay. So on the Prince George's County side, we do have a native plant program that we propagate outside only right now. And we do not grow any trees, or we grow a very small number of trees from acorns and other seeds. So economies of scale wise, the reason probably why we would want 2 facilities is because then we would be able to expand our reach of the native plant program further into the urban populations in Prince George's County, because the goal of having our own facility or expanding our facility to take more plant material is in our sustainability plan. So this fits very nicely into our operational scheme.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there is an advantage to having the split facilities, even though it may be not as cost productive.
That sounds right.
Okay.
Yes.
Good enough.
And I'm informed by the Deputy Director of Parks that there's a capacity issue too.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
All right, thank you.
We're still under discussion on the motion. Any other questions for discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Adams, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey?
We may have lost her again.
Muted.
She's frozen. Keep
No,
going.
she's on. Oh, she's frozen.
She's frozen. Keep
All right.
going.
Hold on.
Oh, we got her. You did it. You voted.
I did. Thank you.
Commissioner Giraldo?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington?
Aye.
Vice Chair Zients?
Aye.
Commissioner Branson?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Pinero?
Aye.
Commissioner Presley?
Aye.
9-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda under action presentation, item 6, we have item 6C. This is related to what was discussed in executive session, closed session. So we have resolution 23-04, approval of the 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 30. This will be effective February 1st, 2023 through January 2026. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve resolution 2304, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Mr. Adams, if you could call the roll.
Chair Shapiro?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington?
Aye.
Vice Chair Zients?
I abstain.
Commissioner Branson?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Pinero?
Aye.
Commissioner Presley?
Aye.
8 in favor, 1 abstention, 1 absence.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Next item on our agenda, 6D, is Resolution 23-05, approval of fiscal year 2024 wage adjustments and pass-through of other terms approved for Park Police Command staff and police candidates. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve resolution 23-05.
Second.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington.
I'll give that one to Manny.
All right, I think he beat you, Amy, I have to say. Motion by Commissioner
Okay.
Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, Mr. Adams, if you could call the roll.
Chair Shapiro?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington?
Aye.
Vice Chair Zients?
Aye.
Commissioner Branson?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Pinero?
Aye.
Commissioner Presley.
I vote aye.
The vote is 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. The next three items we have are not action items. These are presentations. We'll start with the Sustainability Committee report. We have representatives from the committee here. And take it away.
Hi, everyone. For the record, my name is Kayla Hickman. I am the Sustainability Coordinator at Montgomery Parks, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Adrienne Thomas, and I am the Sustainability Specialist within Facilities Management here at Montgomery Parks.
Oh, should I go?
Yep.
Or is Carl going to go? Okay, great. Hi, I'm Lauren Bell. I'm the Sustainability Specialist too at the Department of Parks and Recreation, and right now I'm also the Acting Environmental Sustainability Coordinator.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm Carl Morgan. I am the Special Projects and Policy Manager with Montgomery Planning. And so I'm last in the group because I'm also first to start off the presentation today. So
can I just do a mic check? Everyone can hear Mr. Morgan, correct? In the
Yes.
audience too?
Yes.
Okay, good. Take it away.
great, thanks. All right.
Can you see my screen? Okay.
We can. We see sustainability action plans.
Yeah, there we
The
go.
title screen.
Perfect. All right, well, good morning, and thank you all for the opportunity that we have to be here to talk to you today about the FY23 to 27 Sustainability Action Plans. I'm Carl Morgan, a Special Projects and Policy Manager with Montgomery Planning, and I'm joined by my colleagues here who just have introduced themselves. We make up together the Sustainability Committee for the Commission, and we have been working a lot since the revisions were made to Practice 640, which is the Commission's sustainability standards. These standards and this practice mapped out a more contemporary and responsive approach to sustainability planning, and that approach rests on three pillars of sustainability, and these include environmental responsibility, social equity, and economic vitality. We'll go into a little more detail about these in the presentation, but I just wanted to say it's been exciting to have this new practice with us. It's been exciting to plan within this new framework, and I think the primary challenge that we've had at this time has been just mainly one of timing. But I think in the future that will be taken care of because the revisions to Practice 640 took some time that was necessary but posed a more aggressive timeline upon us. Typically, a planning process like this would be a full year's worth of planning. But we have a great team. We have a lot of people who worked with us together from all of our departments, and there was a lot of coordination that we were trying to do in a short amount of time. So the process of strategizing, assessing, performing outreach, and coordination within each of our departments and pulling together subject matter experts was very helpful in helping to draft the plan. While it was kind of a wild ride this time around, I also just personally enjoyed being able to see the resiliency of our staff and flexibility in coming together. And it's been a pleasure to work with them, and we look forward to doing a lot of continuous work in coordinating and implementing this plan. And when the plan itself, the practice calls for or identifies a sustainability committee. And it's made up of several department sustainability coordinators. So all four of us right now have introduced ourselves, and there's a fifth position to be appointed from the planning department in Prince George's County, we understand. The coordinators serve together as points of contact in their respective departments and serve as a clearinghouse for all sustainability-related issues within the Commission. Not only does this sustainability team lead the development of the 5-year sustainability plan, but the team also serves in a communications role that involves reporting progress and sharing the plan's goals to staff, who ultimately will implement the plan. With respect to the plan itself, the team will focus on helping the Commission to mirror best practices, to align action plans to Commission values, And then thirdly, pursue shared goals between the various departments and jurisdictions within the commission. When it comes to achieving the shared goals as a commission, we've worked together on many projects already, including a partnership with PEPCO and BG&E to provide EV charging stations that are available to the public. Implementing Practice 640, of course, which took a lot of work with you all and with our policy team, the executive director, and so we have a new map moving forward on that. And then we envision continuing to work together among our departments on projects that include working with CAS, or Central Administrative Services, on commission-wide sustainable purchasing and procurement guidance, pursuing grants and opportunities for outside funding, and coordinated staff training. So collaboration between the plans is important, and I'll turn the time over to Kayla Hickman and Lauren Bell to talk a little bit more about how the plans, while separate documents, work together to make M-NCPPC a sustainable one commission.
Yeah, and thanks, Carl. So Practice 6-40 specifically calls for the Commission's sustainability plans to strive to mirror best practices of each county. And this is why both plans have a similar framework but are slightly different in their focus. So on Montgomery County side, we identified that we needed to focus a lot more on energy conservation, and that Prince George's County had a pretty comprehensive energy conservation program. So our recommended actions are mirroring what is already being done in Prince George's. So including, retrofitting all of our exterior lighting to LED like they have, effectively utilizing the Empower Maryland program to receive rebates for energy conservation, and also using a crew to conduct energy envelope assessments for our buildings. So these are all things that we've noticed on the Prince George's side that we would like to incorporate over in Montgomery County. And I'll let Lauren speak a little bit to Prince George's County.
On Prince George's County side, we, again, with the native plant and native tree nursery, really love Pope Farm and everything that's been done there. And we've been working to replicate it at a small scale, but we would love to expand that. So that's included in our plan. We also are going to be creating an integrated pest management work program, a trails team work program, and we are going to be doing some stormwater BMP retrofit planning.
So we're going to start off by talking more specifically about the Montgomery County Sustainability Plan. And before we go into the recommendations, I just wanted to briefly talk about how we created the plan. So Carl mentioned we worked a lot with a lot of staff members across departments and divisions to co-create the recommendations that you see within the plans. And the reason being that a wide range of the recommendations do involve a high level of collaboration and coordination between the departments and divisions. So we wanted that collaboration to happen at the forefront. So we organized 8 working groups, which included over 100 staff members. We also wanted to incorporate and weave in existing internal and external plans such as Thrive 2050, PROS 2022, the Montgomery County Climate Action Plan, and county and state legislation. You'll see these referenced throughout the plan. And another key element was just building recommendations that are leveraging already existing programs. So what do we already have in place and how can we just kind of shift a little bit to make those programs support the sustainability goals of the commission? We broke the plan up into 9 different focus areas, which all incorporate the goals that were directly pulled from Practice 6-40. And since the plan is a public-facing document, we did want to utilize catchy names that we can use at events or at our nature centers to talk about what M-NCPPC is doing to be more sustainable. Each focus area chapter is broken up into 3 parts. So there's an intro section, a current progress section, which describes the current programs we have in place and sustainability metrics, and then goals and recommended actions, which lists broad goals with corresponding recommended actions. Each recommended action does name a lead division or department that's responsible for implementation, and also includes indicators, which are metrics that we will use to measure success. We're going to walk through the goals of each focus area really briefly. So the Be Climate Friendly, Climate Ready section is the first focus area within the plan, and that was really intentional because it sets the foundation of our agency's commitment to climate action and climate goals that have been set by Montgomery County. It also speaks to how climate action is going to be integrated into the recommendations of other sections. The plan sets a goal to eliminate operational greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. That number is in line with our county's climate action goals. The other two goals are related to increasing the adaptive capacity and resiliency of our organization to climate change and evaluates our role within the community in implementing nature-based climate solutions. The plan sets a path for how we'll achieve these goals by evaluating where we are now, specific steps that we'll take through recommended actions, and what we're going to track to ensure progress. And we're going to review this for one goal per focus area, starting with our emissions reduction goal. So the sustainability plan conducted a greenhouse gas inventory of the Montgomery County side operation emissions and set a baseline year of fiscal year 2019 to compare as we move forward. And the steps to achieve emission reductions are one, to continually conduct a biannual greenhouse gas inventory to report to the full commission and publicly, and to incorporate emission reduction projects into our CIP. All of the other actions related to carbon-free energy and vehicles and equipment are going to be located in the next three focus areas that I talk about. And obviously, the biggest indicator of success is going to be a reduction in that annual greenhouse gas emissions. The Energized Parks section sets two goals, which are related to utility savings and greenhouse gas emission reductions. The first is energy use intensity of our facilities. So as I mentioned before, our plan sets a path for a heavy focus placed on energy conservation projects, and also sets a goal to increase the amount of on-site renewable energy generated on parkland. So how are we going to achieve a reduction in energy use intensity? So we currently have an EUI that hasn't changed much in the past 5 years, except for fiscal year 20 due to COVID closures. And site energy use intensity is a really important unit of measure when we're looking at energy conservation, because it converts all of the energy used into one unit and also accounts for conditioned square footage. We also wanted to evaluate our exterior lighting. Currently, right now, 38% of our exterior lighting is LED. So the most important action for us is, one, the creation of a comprehensive energy management program. So looking at how our facilities management and our PDD divisions can work together to implement some of these projects. And also, since LED lighting is a low-hanging fruit, it has been identified as a high priority to make sure that all of our outdoor lights are LED through retrofits. In the next 5 years, we're going to continue tracking the energy use intensity of specific buildings, especially before and after renovations. We're currently doing this now for a large renovation of our police headquarters. The Greener Buildings section has recommendations that achieve goals related to energy by setting additional goals to transition HVAC systems away from fossil fuels, while also reviewing strategies to holistically improve building and facility environmental performance and reducing overall utility use. So looking at not just energy, but also water consumption. And Parks has already begun a lot of work towards transitioning our buildings away from fossil fuel heating through HVAC system replacements. So the recommended actions are really building upon our current program. So one, setting a standard that all of our new buildings will be fossil fuel free. We also want to ensure that all of our HVAC replacements are paired with building envelope repairs. So doing an energy audit at the beginning of a renovation project or at the beginning of switching out an HVAC system. We'll track this by reporting how many of our facilities have transitioned away from fossil fuel HVAC systems, and also the reduction in direct greenhouse gas emissions associated with building heating. The final focus area that's centered around operational emission reductions is the Riding to Zero emissions focus area, which provides recommendations to reduce fleet and staff commuting emissions. And it also sets a goal for both departments to support publicly available EV charging throughout Montgomery County, which is a goal set by our county climate action plan. So really just speaking to how parks and planning can both support that. So to achieve reductions in operational emissions of our fleet and equipment, it's really important to just understand the current technology, supply chain issues, the global market for EVs, and also the impact of increased telework and virtual meetings on the use of our vehicles. Our fleet currently has 31 hybrid vehicles and 8 plug-in EVs. And we do have an internal purchasing preference of EV or plug-in hybrid when it is a light-duty passenger vehicle. However, the past couple of years, we have continued to purchase gasoline vehicles because of the lack of EV availability and long wait times, which everybody's very familiar with. It is getting a little bit better. So in light of this, our plan really focuses on right-sizing our fleet first. So we do have a lot of underutilized vehicles, especially with the increase of teleworking and virtual meetings. And it seems like at least virtual meetings are going to stay pretty intact. So identifying those and redeploying them to other divisions who may need vehicles will help the commission save money. And it will also help a division in need when an EV is not available to avoid an emissions lock-in with a new gasoline vehicle. Also, as mentioned previously, both of our plans do call for an EV infrastructure plan to kind of understand how the infrastructure needs moving forward to transition all of our equipment and all of our vehicles to electric. We'll track our progress by looking at the percentage of passenger vehicles purchased that are EV and also a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from our fleet and equipment. And I'm going to pass it to Adrian.
I'm going to continue with the waste less, recycle more section of the plan. The overall goals are to reduce the total amount of waste generated through operations and within the parks. Another goal is to explore opportunities to increase the diversion rate of both organic and inorganic materials. And lastly, we aim to implement sustainability-focused policies into the procurement process. So how will we get there? Montgomery County continues to run a comprehensive recycling program and has the highest diversion rate in the state, with the Parks Department averaging a waste diversion rate of nearly 70%. In fact, we just completed the report for the calendar year 2022, and our diversion rate was 81%, which ties our highest rate ever. In addition to the comprehensive recycling program, Montgomery Parks operates a volunteer cleanup program for our streams and parks. These cleanups help prevent waste from entering local waterways. On average, these volunteers dedicate up to 80,000 hours and collect 30,000 pounds of waste annually. We will continue making progress with waste management by implementing an outreach campaign aimed at reducing recycling contamination, providing annual staff training around recycling, and expanding our current recycling program to include additional materials. There will be multiple metrics we will track to monitor progress and make any changes if necessary. These metrics include tracking our percentage of waste diverted from the landfill, tracking the number of staff engaged in the recycling trainings, and the percentage of recycling contamination through our waste audit program that was established back in the fall of 2019. A core tenet of the Parks Department's mission is to balance the demand for recreation with the need for conservation. This section of the plan, Preserve Our Parks, Green Our Grounds, has a goal of integrating sustainable best management practices into the operations and maintenance of managed park spaces to retain natural resources while enhancing ecological services and biodiversity within parks. And lastly, to create sustainable park design standards that enhance ecosystem services and increase the resiliency of parks to impacts of climate change. The Parks Department has a dedicated crew and staff who oversee the inspection, maintenance, preservation, and care of trees in 420 parks. Currently, the arboriculture section maintains a tree inventory of over 29,000 landscape trees. The meadow crew within park planning and stewardship manages 124 meadows. And using alternative pest removal practices, the department now has 55 parks that are managed without conventional pesticides. The department is dedicated to working with park managers to identify areas that are ideal for transitioning to natural spaces, expanding NNI, or non-native invasive plant and pest management outside of best natural areas, and to expand the tree planting and maintenance program. We will achieve these goals by tracking the percentage of parkland that is turf grass, monitoring the number of landscape trees that receive PMs or preventative maintenance, and expand the acreage of NNI management areas. The Parks and Planning departments directly influence local land development patterns that directly affect many critical factors that shape communities' health. The recently adopted General Plan, or Thrive Montgomery 2050, serves as a long-range guide for development within the county. In this section of the plan, Plan to Thrive, both departments have the following goals: facilitating inclusive community engagement in planning and project development, incorporating environmental justice principles into land use decision-making, and ensuring equitable distribution of services, programs, the natural environment, and parks. The planning department is in the process of developing several analytic tools to understand socioeconomic conditions in different parts of the county and facilitate discussion and decision-making about the equitable allocation of resources. This work is being completed as part of the department's equity agenda in planning. The equity-focused analysis tool is the first step in that process. Parks plays a role in expanding access to healthy, fresh, local food through the Community Gardens program. They have partnered with Harvest Share, a local organization that is committed to reducing food insecurity in Montgomery County. Through this partnership, they were able to donate over 3,000 pounds of food to support members of the community. Both departments are committed to expanding the community garden program by establishing food donations in gardens in equity-focused areas, by creating an outreach campaign targeting EFAs for the free tree program, and providing additional resources for the protection and maintenance of natural resources within those EFAs. These goals will be tracked and monitored by increasing funding for projects in EFAs, increasing the number of community gardens in EFAs, and also ensuring preventative maintenance of trees and acres of NNI management in parks within those EFAs. The degree to which community members and staff are actively engaged in sustainability is critical to achieving the countywide sustainability goals and also the goals within this plan. In this section of the plan, Foster Community Action, both departments will work to increase public outreach and program offerings that inform and engage local community members in sustainability, increase opportunities for staff to engage in sustainability training, sustainable habits in the workplace, and also the implementation of the sustainability plan. And lastly, to remove cultural, physical, and economic barriers to accessing parks programs, services, and facilities. The Parks Department must adapt its programs and facilities to meet the specific needs and desires of an increasingly diverse population.
Let me pause you 1 second while we work on this technical issue.
Sure.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. The Parks Department must adapt its programs and facilities to meet the specific needs and desires of an increasingly diverse population that includes historically, marginally, and underserved neighborhoods and groups. We currently have 5 nature centers and a mobile nature center that provides nature-based education to local communities and schools. We also participate in the annual Green Fest event, which is the largest environmental festival in Montgomery County. Specific steps that will be taken to increase public outreach offerings related to sustainability include reinstating the Parks RX program, building educational programming around climate change, and also incorporating green building features into all nature centers. We will be tracking the number of participants at public climate events, the number of volunteers for cleanups, and also staff engagement in sustainability trainings. Many recommendations set forth in this plan will see an immediate and continued return on investment that can be measured and quantified. The Parks and Planning departments will create and maintain reliable indicators, reduce upfront costs of sustainability projects by utilizing innovative funding sources, and also increase economic opportunities for service area communities. A major goal of this section is to reduce costs of sustainability projects by utilizing innovative funding sources. Currently, we have an annual solar energy savings of over $144,000. Energy utility companies operating throughout the state of Maryland manage energy rebates programs for their customers through the Empower Maryland program. A recent example of this includes an LED exterior lighting retrofit project at South Germantown Rec Park. This project replaced 62 high-pressure sodium light fixtures to newer, more efficient LED technology. To continue pushing this initiative forward, We will explore the use of energy savings performance contracts. We will apply for energy conservation and renewable energy rebates. And also, we will identify potential partnerships to fund environmental restoration projects. We will be tracking total utility savings, returns on investments, and the total grants and incentives received. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lauren to discuss what's happening in Prince George's County.
Thanks. Next slide. So Prince George's County went with One Planet Living as our framework. One Planet Living is an international framework that has about 25 years of science and research-backed results across the world. The 10 focus areas are seen on the left side of your screen, and they are what we have made our Practice 640 indicators and guidelines into. Next slide. So One Planet Living has a very specific set of steps that you take to arrive at a plan. And one of those is that you do all-day focus groups with a diverse amount of stakeholders. So we had 3 all-day focus groups where we engaged 75 stakeholders from like boots on the ground plumbers all the way up to our director of Parks and Recreation in some fun and engaging workshop activities. And then we worked to create and develop our plan. After the plan was developed, we worked to integrate the plan with our own master plan, our county's climate action plan, county standards, and some Maryland state legislation that we know is coming. And then Prince George's County focuses a lot on public-private partnerships. So we wanted to make sure that there were opportunities within this sustainability plan to partner with appropriate groups and to help reduce burden of cost on tax holders, and then also to help to increase our institutional knowledge. Next slide. So health and happiness is our very first goal, and we have 3 big, broad guiding star goals. One Planet Living lays out that you need to do a big, broad guiding star goal. Then after that, you take specific actions towards your goal. There's indicators or metrics that you collect to map your progress. And then there's targets where within the realistic timeline of this plan, what we hope to achieve. The broad goals of the plan are to provide mental health and well-being programming access to connect people to their natural world, increase our DEI efforts to include not just programmatic, but our hiring considerations, and then also promote connections to nature as an essential part of one's life. Next slide. So how will we get there? These goals sound really amazing, right? And they're super great and feel good, but there's specific actions that are laid out in our sustainability plan that will help us to achieve it. We also will be leveraging existing partners, and the way that we map our progress towards the goal is also laid out in our plan. So some specific steps that we're going to be taking to promote connections to nature and an essential part of one's life would be to launch a public awareness campaign on nature's benefits, develop and offer specific and targeted programming, and then develop community gardening maintenance initiative for a vulnerable group. Some existing partnerships that we're going to be leveraging are Park Recs and Nature Sacred, veterans group, refugee groups, and religious organizations, and then also our PEPCO, BGE, and SMECO partnerships. We're going to be tracking number of hours spent in natural world programming by both residents and our staff, number of community partnerships engaged with the work program, and then also app usage and ParkRx data on park prescriptions. Next slide, please. In equity and local economy, we're going to be fostering job growth for existing staff in the community through local purchasing, apprenticeship, and et cetera. Provide flexible work arrangements for all staff, including flex scheduling, job share, work outdoors, and increase access to reliable internet in our park systems throughout the county. Next slide, please. So how are we going to increase reliable internet in our park systems? We all know about the digital divide, and we have been partnering with Maryland for the last 3 years, and we are going for a 5-year NSF grant on specifically increasing access to internet and reliable broadband outside. It's an NSF funded grant, and it supports the donation of broadband Wi-Fi. So we're going to be developing a protocol for park Wi-Fi usage and donation pathway. It's also going to be making some really interesting technological advances in broadband dynamism. And we're really excited about that specific thing, but we didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. So on our side, internally, we're going to be working with our ITS division to pilot an outdoor work location at the Sustainability Learning Center, which is our adaptive reuse site where we're taking an old disused industrial greenhouse complex and making it into a sustainability hub. Some existing partnerships we're going to be leveraging are obviously University of Maryland, our grant partner, and PGCC, which is another one of our grant partners, and other Wi-Fi donor groups. We're going to be tracking the number of unique IDs accessing park-based Wi-Fi, number of unique IDs utilizing the pilot outdoor work location at the Sustainability Learning Center, and then also the number and breadth of Wi-Fi donors in pilot locations. Next slide, please. Celebrate all of the unique cultural in culture and community, we're going to be celebrating all of the unique cultural identities throughout the county, empowering our communities and shared decision-making, and then we want to create a culture of sustainable stewardship at our department. Next slide, please. So for creating a culture of sustainable stewardship, we want to implement a week of service in the fall to facilitate sustainable volunteering for our staff. It's going to look very similar to what we do in the spring with our Health and Fitness Week, but we are looking forward to having people get kind of down and dirty with sustainable stuff. So it's going to include everything from stormwater cleanups, trash pickups along rivers, and then also things like putting in a sustainable landscape. We also will be developing and implementing a training curriculum specific to each division. This is something that came up in all 3 of our focus groups. Our staff really wants more sustainability-based training. And then we are going to be including sustainability training in onboarding of new staff. And we're actually already working with CAS and Montgomery County to start to integrate some of these concepts. Existing partnerships, we're going to be leveraging our external trainers, internal groups at M-NCPPC, and then some of our corporate volunteers. We feel like doing some fellowship together will help us to build our partnerships and make them stronger in the future. And it also gives us the opportunity to leverage their muscle and labor for some of our fall week of service initiatives. We're going to be tracking the number of participants in completed projects during week of service. We're going to be tracking percentage of staff trained in at least one sustainable curriculum and divisions served during the check-in training process. Next slide. For land and nature, we want to increase biodiversity, ensure access to nature for all county residents, and break even on the number of native trees removed and the number of native tree species we plant each year on commissioned land, properties, and design parks. Increase biodiversity to include native plants, insects, and birds. This is a really big, broad goal, but we're going to take some very specific steps to get there. One is to adopt a biodiversity governance charter. We're going to be working for the next 2 fiscal years on this governance charter, so we should have it within the next 2 fiscal years. We're expanding our sustainable design landscape principles to all new landscape installs, where we use an 80% straight species native to 20% cultivar and near native to mirror the 80% to 20% specialist to generalist population of our insects, aka the basis of the food webs that we see. And then we will be creating an IPM work program. As we talked about a little bit earlier, Kayla and I decided, and all of the sustainability committee really, decided that it was really important to mirror best practices. And once Montgomery County has this IPM work program, we see a large reduction in the pesticide and fertilizer use in the system. And we thought that Prince George's County felt that that was a very important use of our funding. Some existing partnerships we're going to be utilizing are Prince George's County Government, PGCPS, and iNaturalist and Master Gardeners. So we'll be tracking the total number of iNaturalist observations system-wide, number of trees planted per year and species counts, and then net change in green space on commission land. Next slide. For sustainable water, we're going to be investing in cistern technology and fully realizing opportunities through work with facility staff. We currently have 5 very large cisterns across park properties, and they're used for a variety of things from a wash bay to irrigating landscape. And we'd like to expand that and invest more in cistern technology. We also want to have a positive impact on area stormwater through responsibly managing our own and developing a framework of responsible use of potable water system-wide. Next slide. Have a positive impact on stormwater management. This is a big call, but in Prince George's County, M-NCPPC owns most of the stream valleys in the county. So we have a real opportunity here to make a drastic impact on the stormwater of Prince George's County. So some specific steps that we will be utilizing are manage stream valleys in water responsive ways. We already do this through our partnership with Clean Water and Maryland DOE and PG DOE. However, there's more that we can do. We're going to be doing a BMP retrofit infrastructure plan, and we'll be increasing infiltration in urban areas. Some existing partnerships we're going to be leveraging are Prince George's County Government, Clean Water Partnership, and University of Maryland. We're also going to be tracking number of people living in high-risk flood areas, percentage of land that is water permeable, and number of functional BMPs on park property. Next slide. For local and sustainable food, we want park properties to begin to produce local and sustainable produce, increase our plant-based offerings through our own internal catering process and concessions that we sell to the public, and use our resources to help our residents become more food secure, food just, or food sovereign. Next slide. So how are we going to do that? We're going to open a pilot urban farm on a closed access site. It will be at Randall Farm. It's going to be at the Sustainability Learning Center. And they will be donating produce to Capital Area Food Bank. So we're also going to be developing food justice programming for elementary students in partnership with PGCPS. And we're going to be hosting more farmers markets on more diverse commission properties. Some existing partnerships we're going to be leveraging are the Capital Area Food Bank, PGCPS, and EcoCity Farms. EcoCity Farms ground leases a couple of our sites already, and they've offered to help us with the development of the food justice programming. We're really excited to expand that partnership. What we're going to track is the amount of food donated by weight from the pilot farm, the number of students completing food justice programming, and the amount of farmers markets hosted and number of locations offered. For travel and transport, we're going to prioritize investment in connectivity of our trail system, continue to decrease our departmental transport carbon footprint, and care for, maintain, and update our existing trail system in an equitable way. Next slide. So obviously, people really want to have a more connected trail system, and there's a lot of steps that go into that. Some specific steps that we're going to be taking this 5-year period will be to work with regional trail systems to ID opportunities to connect, to create a trails team and associated work program, just like what Montgomery County has, to handle maintenance concerns, and then also ensure there are clear and simple wayfinding signs established across this trail system. So existing partnerships, we're going to be leveraging our Prince George's County government, community cycling groups, and then area trail connector user groups. We're also going to be tracking trail crime stats, miles of trails resurfaced, upgraded, or added to our system, and then percentage increase in trail users. Next slide. For materials and products, we want to develop a framework for responsible salvage of demolition, renovation, and new construction for the department, continue to decrease our overall departmental carbon footprint, and review RFP and procurement process jointly with Montgomery County to make it more friendly to be green. Next slide. So in developing a framework for responsible salvage of demos, renos, and et cetera, we're going to be taking some very specific steps. We want to prioritize construction with reclaimed or recycled materials. We also want to explore carbon capture building technologies and include responsible materials strategy in our RFP process. For existing partnerships, we're going to be leveraging Prince George's County government, USDOT, which takes a lot of our construction waste and makes it into new roadways. And then community forklift is not existing, but would be beneficial overall, along with other area architectural salvage companies. So we'll be developing those over the next 5 years. We're going to be tracking percentage of materials salvaged in the construction process, percentage of recycled construction materials, and amounts and types of carbon capture building technologies. Next slide. For zero waste, we want to maximize upcycling, reuse, and recycling across our department. We want to divert a larger percentage of waste from both the landfill and the recycling streams. And we want to re-energize our recycling program responsibly within new international guidelines and considerations. Next slide, please. So by maximizing all of this, it sounds really wonderful. However, in our focus groups, part of the training that people asked for was for programmers who want to integrate things like sustainable crafts into their programming. So we're going to be developing upcycling and sustainable crafts, develop a training for recycling that will work department-wide, and offer programming in adaptive reuse and upcycling crafts. Existing partnerships, we're going to be utilizing our county arts groups, internal M-NCPPC, and University of Maryland. We're going to be tracking number of programs offered, number of staff receiving general recycling training, and then percentage of programs including reuse or upcycling as part of the curriculum. For zero carbon energy, we want to ensure our energy consumed is supplied by renewable energy generated on site or on park property. Convert all yard equipment to electric, and then solar charging infrastructure in place to support our EV fleet and some equipment conversion. This is what Kayla alluded to earlier with how we are both counties are looking at an EV infrastructure plan. We're going to be prioritizing infrastructure development at all of our maintenance yards here in Prince George's County, as well as at Park and Planning headquarter building. We feel like that will encapsulate most of the fleet vehicles that have EV equivalencies right now. However, Prince George's County Parks and Rec has a large amount of community centers and facilities that are geographically isolated from these locations. And so we're going to be experimenting with existing solar technologies to find small scale implementations for those community centers and facilities that have one passenger vehicle. We're also going to be requiring solar arrays for all new construction for fleet EVs. Existing partnerships we're going to be leveraging are our existing partnership with PEPCO, BGE, and SMECO, existing contractors and design firms, and University of Maryland. We're also going to be tracking number of EV charging stations available for business use at our pilot locations, types of solar arrays used to support EV charging, and then percent of existing EVs with dedicated charging infrastructure. And that is it. Questions?
Thank you to the entire team. As I look for questions, let me just open with a quick comment, which is I appreciate all the unbelievable amount of work that has brought us to this point from all of you. Mm-hmm. It's very, very impressive, and it's going to move us in an incredibly healthy direction. I think it's going to move us into a leadership position, and it's wonderful to see. I would also say it's nice that, and it's healthy that even if the two counties have very different versions of this, that they're speaking to each other, the plans are speaking to each other in very obvious and coherent ways. So it's nice to see that this is a kind of a one commission plan, even if there's some real differences between what's going on in the two counties. So I just want to frame it with that. Again, thank you for all the work that's gone into this. And commissioners, are there specific questions from what you heard with everything in the presentation?
I don't have a question, but I do want to thank them for the great presentation. I have seen, at least in Prince George's County, changes being made in the local parks and the trails, and it's really appreciated. I get a lot of comments from the neighborhood, and they're really appreciating, especially that dog park. But besides that, Besides that, the trails, I was mentioning to Mr. Carter today that I noticed, for example, at Tantalian North, that they're about to increase the trail from, which is about maybe 3 feet wide to 6 feet wide, which is really healthy, especially when we look at what was happening during the pandemic, that we had to close it because we didn't want, this way you have 6 feet. People can go both ways and not be fearful of catching any illness. But I do want to thank both park departments for the great jobs that they're doing in the county.
Well said.
I love your background.
Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, I wanted to echo Chair Shapiro's comments and add that I really like the fact that you've carefully looked at partnering and working with other organizations. I think that's a great move for the whole region as well. I do have 2 issues I just want to bring up because they're maybe low-hanging fruit that I really didn't see in the plan. I'm going to ask the staff here if they'd put up a picture of the second issue, and then I'll talk about the first while they're doing that. And one is on the materials and products part of this. I was just wondering whether we might also incentivize the use of local construction materials. That's a component of LEED points, and it's one that most people don't really think about, is the energy intensiveness of moving construction materials. So including reclaiming and recycling, it strikes me that local supply is a thing that, that may be incentivizing the contractors to look at those options, but was one item that I wanted to kind of nominate. I might be too late in this cycle, maybe it goes to the next cycle. And the other is this picture on the slide here. So this, by the way, is not an M-NCPPC facility. But it's in our region and comparable. So it's not, there are a couple problems inherent in this picture. But the one I want to call out goes to that zero waste and waste less, recycle more question, which is the proliferation of single-use containers. And I'm sure this hits our park system, right? People want to stay hydrated. They want to drink. There's a convenience in grabbing that bottle. But it seems to me that we're just overloaded with that, and it's not a necessary thing in our society. There's certainly the move to get people to use recyclable bottles, but it also kind of applies to our parks and how we supply water in the park systems. I would mention that it seems like there's a growing apprehension in the public about drinking fountains and the possibility of the health of those, although I would point out that the water coming out of a drinking fountain is generally going to be healthier than what's in a bottle because it's not regulated, right? And that's something most people don't appreciate. They think what's in the bottle is better, but actually what comes out of your tap, except for the supply part of it, is generally going to be more carefully monitored. So I'm wondering if there is something that the park can do in leadership, not just only handling this in our own facilities, and also, but educating the public some on this. When people come to parks, and kids certainly are a good group to be educating about this for future activity, but trying to get away from the marketing pitch that the beverage supply has convinced the public that a bottle of water is better than a container you have that you fill up with water from a better water source. So just a comment.
Excellent. Building on that, actually, where are we in this process? If there is specific input from commissioners, such as Commissioner Hill mentioned, is there room to change, amend, add, augment in any way, or are we past that point?
Well, at least on the Prince George's County side, both of your comments are already incorporated as part of our plan. We have a single-use plastics ban as one of the actions we'll be taking in zero waste. We're going to be starting pilots of that and getting some lessons learned before we do a full system rollout. We want to make sure we do it in the correct way and for our residents in the correct way, and figure out how to do it in both parks and facilities. We also incentivize local building materials in our local economy section. We've just separated it from materials and structures and materials and products. But we want to have 50% of our goods, services, and materials be local.
That's great.
Okay, good.
Excellent. Commissioner Branson, you have a question.
Yes, I did. And you may have covered this in the procurement section, but it didn't stick with me. It's my understanding that we'll be going to we've started a supplier diversity program, and we've started, or we're in the process of starting a small business reserve type program. And so I'm wondering how your efforts will feed into those programs. Because I did notice procurement on your slides, but I wasn't really certain if, if those new initiatives had been incorporated.
Yeah, so they're not maybe directly mentioned within the plans, but they are something that I think we would want to mirror our sustainable procurement sort of project as we're working with Cass on that. I will say that it is mentioned in the practice and a little bit in our plans that sustainable procurement does include local, and it does include more diverse and small businesses within our counties. So I definitely think we would be willing to, one, kind of partner with those and build upon them, but also to kind of mirror that as well, so we don't have to like rebuild the wheel, essentially.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would be helpful. I mean, if we're starting supplier diversity programs and small business programs, then it kind of has to be everybody in the pool, So, as you start this new thing, I would, really encourage you to reach out to figure out how this sustainability effort can be implemented using these small businesses and the supplier diversity. Thank you so much for your work.
Great question. Great comment. Something you have a comment on that as well?
Yeah, the supplier diversity program falls under the purview of the executive director's office. So we definitely are working closely with the sustainability group, and we will be working with them to assist them with procurement, with small local and minority women-owned businesses as well. So that will not be forgotten, Commissioner Branson. We also are helping them coordinate, because this truly is a one commission enterprise that we are working on together. We will also be assisting with the outward communications, inward communications, helping put that together, as well as the performance measurements. And Malcolm Jackson is our supplier diversity manager. And so he's on the call. And so we've got this. He's got the ball on this. So they will be coordinating.
Thank you. Folks, I'm mindful of the time, and we have a few other items too, but I want to see if there's any other questions that folks have for this team. None? Okay. Thank you again. This is for our information, this presentation, fabulous work, and I know this is going to help shape the direction for the commission for a long time. And so very, very well done. You're hearing nothing but praise from all of our folks here, and so congratulations. Okay, moving on. Next item is the potential implication. You have Mr. Kroll. This is potential implications of Montgomery County spending affordability guidelines. And the floor is yours, Mr. Kroll.
Thank you. And for the record, John Kroll, Corporate Budget Director. On Tuesday, February 14th, yesterday, the Montgomery County Council approved the spending affordability guidelines for the operating budget for fiscal year 24. This approval was predicated upon the Government Operations Committee review and recommendation, which occurred the previous Thursday. Had the Government Operations Committee gone with the staff recommendation, we would be in a fairly good shape, as that recommendation would have resulted in a slightly smaller reduction than last year's spending affordability guidelines. However, the committee voted to increase the CIP pay-go, and that came at the expense of the allotments for both the county and the commission. Therefore, these guidelines now project a 6.2% reduction from the proposed budget, or approximately $10.95 million in Montgomery County funded department budgets, including the Montgomery County funded portion of the bi-county departments. By comparison, last year's spending affordability reduction was 3.3%, or half the amount, $5.4 million. The amount of the required reduction may well change with the release of the county executive's budget on March 15th. I'm presenting this information to the full commission for this reason. Reductions that may be proposed for the bi-county departments will potentially impact the services that the bi-county departments provide both to the Prince George's County side of the commission as well as to the Montgomery County side. I would also like to point out that unlike some past years, we've not yet been able to identify any commission-wide savings that could be applied, although we'll continue to look for those. History does suggest, though, that the fiscal picture of Montgomery County may be shown to improve in the next month. However, it may be appropriate for the Montgomery and bi-county departments to begin developing our options. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Kroll. So this sounds like a bit of a heads up for us.
Yes.
And nothing we need to do beyond note that this may be coming our way. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Kroll? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And our final presentation is from Mr. Cohen on other post-employment benefits actuarial evaluation. Mr. Cohen and team, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. You're going to be receiving a brief presentation. I believe Tom Vicente is going to be presenting. Both Tom and Tim Barry, you can see on your screen, represent a Bolton actuarial firm, and they're going to be updating you on the status of our trust, which is used to accumulate resources to pay for retiree health benefits. With that, Mr. Chair, Tom Vicente, you're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen at this point.
We can.
Like it's cycling through. Oh, good. All right. So this is our presentation. We do an annual valuation of the retiree benefit program, the OPEB program, every July 1st. Last done July 1st, 2022, which is used to set the contribution recommendations for fiscal 2024. The overall cost of the plan was projected to increase for fiscal 24 from $35.9 million to $37.9 million. Most of that is in increased payouts directly to pay for retiree benefits. The amount of money going into the trust that Gavin mentioned, the net trust contribution, which is the fourth bullet down the page, is actually decreasing from $9.4 million to just under $8.6 million. That's the recommended contribution to the trust from the commission. Other items in here, we did include some updates on different assumptions and election rates. So those have been covered and reviewed with staff and making sure they're in line with the agreement on terms of assumptions going forward. I'll turn it over to Tim to talk briefly about the assumption changes that were made. Tim?
Thanks, Tom. So annual updates to the per capita claims costs were made this valuation, and this resulted in we used 3 years of claims experience, blending these 3 years to determine the per capita claims costs, and the discount rate and expected rate of return assumptions were also updated to reflect a 5 basis points reduction. So we can go on to the election rate experience study that we performed. So the budget report reflects the impact of the updated election rates from this study. Previously, 100% of actively employed members with medical coverage were expected to elect coverage at retirement. And of those electing coverage, 70% would elect spousal coverage. Based on the plan's recent experience, we found that these election rate assumptions could be reduced to 97.5% and 65% respectively. So if we go to the next slide, we can go into a little bit more detail on the election rate experience study. Sorry, one back, Tom. The assumption for spousal coverage is based on the enrollment distribution of pre-Medicare coverage tiers as of last year's valuation date, July 1, 2021. Around 62% had elected spousal coverage, 65% is used as the new assumption. The Commission provided historical data for retirees opting out of coverage. We focused on records who had coverage while actively employed, and 7 out of the 320 records or slightly less than 98%, who had coverage as active employees opted out of coverage in retirement. And the 97.5% is the new assumption used in this year's valuation report. So next slide will cover the budget forecast that we put together. The trust value as a percentage of OPEB liability is projected to increase under the current funding method. The ADC, or actuarial determined contribution, is expected to increase with the unfunded liability. However, as Tom pointed out, the Commission's net contribution to the trust is projected to decrease. The last row of this budget exhibit shows the expected benefit payments increasing as a percentage of the ADC, and benefit payments as well as federal subsidies offset the Commission's net trust contribution. The projection accounts for continual annual 5 basis point reduction in the discount rate and the investment rate of return. And the reconciliation of the ADC net contribution and unfunded liability from the prior valuation are detailed on the next slide. So the active population has decreased while the number of retirees and spouses on the OPEB plan continues to increase. The ADC and unfunded liabilities have increased since prior valuation, and the net trust contribution has decreased. The investment experience had the most unfavorable impact on the unfunded liability and contribution amounts, and this was offset by updating the election rate assumptions based on our experience study that we performed.
Okay, those are the highlights. Happy to take any questions, or if there's anything anybody would like to go over in more detail, would be happy to do that with you.
Commissioners, questions? No questions. Thank you all very much. No questions. This is for information only. And thank you to you and your team. Mr. Cohen, anything else?
Excellent. Thank you.
No, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, take care.
Thank you. We have the 3 officers' reports that are for information only, so there's no presentation associated with these that I am
Excuse me,
aware
Mr.
of.
Chairman, there might be a presentation for the legislative update.
Oh, thank you. All right, so let's move past Executive Director's report, past Secretary Treasurer, to General Counsel. Ms. Borden, you have something you want to bring to us?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Deborah Borden, General Counsel for the Commission. I did receive a question from Commissioner Hill that I wanted to address. He had a question about our litigation trends, specifically about the number of tort claims that we have been receiving, and whether or not we appear to be back to our pre-pandemic levels of torts. It does appear that that blip that we saw for the pandemic, when our parks, particularly our parks facilities, were being utilized much more heavily than normal. It does look like we're more back to the pre-pandemic levels. I can't promise, but it does look like we have worked through that particular blip in our tort cases. Just to let you know, we have resolved a number of the cases that we got in during the pandemic already. So we have either settled or tried those cases. So they have come off the board, which is why that number has come down.
Thank you for that answer. And I think we've got the right cause and effect lined up.
That's great.
Great. One more thing I just wanted to mention, the legislative update really quick. We are watching 2 very hot items right now. One is the Forest Conservation Act amendments that have been proposed by Delegate Love and Senator Elfreth. This is a very, very sweeping change to the Forest Conservation Act that has been proposed. And the counties would really like to get together and study this and come up with some solutions. We have a lot of concerns about the increase in the ratio. They're talking about an 8-fold increase in the ratio of cleared acre to acre of replacement. So that's what you would have to replace We think it's not workable across the state, and we hope that in working with MACO, we can turn this into some sort of study, whether informal or formal, and that we can work together to come up with some better ideas. We won't know for sure whether this bill is going to slow down so that we can do a study and maybe bring it back next year, but that's our hope. That's what we're working on. The second really hot item is the Cannabis Reform Act, and that is designed to implement the referendum that happened in November, where the voters voted to legalize adult use cannabis, no longer needing a prescription from a medical provider. So this bill is 88 pages. It is very, very long and very complex. There are only two issues that we would focus on, and that is employer liability and employee discipline. And the second issue is the zoning provisions. So even though it's 88 pages long, the issues that we are developing comments on are very specific, very directed to only the items that are specifically, impactful for the commission. So we are not trying to weigh in on the cannabis legalization debate. We will simply put together a letter of information about those two issues only. We are working to get those letters finalized, and we hope to bring them to you tomorrow at your meetings, your respective planning board meetings. I was trying to get it done for today, but it just not enough time in the day. But those bills are moving quickly, and the committee hearings are coming up, so we want to get those to you as quickly as we can. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Giraldo, you have a question?
I have a question. Yes, on the cannabis bill, what's the issue with the employer liability?
Well, there's some language that talks about employers not being liable for disciplining employees that appear at the workplace either impaired or are ingesting cannabis in the workplace. The problem with the impairment standard is that the testing doesn't match the impairment. You can test positive for the drug, but not be impaired. And so we are suggesting to them that that language really should be clarified, that if you have a testing program, it must be paired with a reasonable suspicion standard, that as long as you employ in good faith, that you can't then be sued for that. So we're suggesting some massaging of that language along those lines.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, I presume that smoking cannabis projects would fall under the same smoking limits as tobacco and vaping products, or it's prohibited from most of the facilities that we would cover?
That's correct.
Okay, but consumption, ingestibles, of course, is different. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Branson?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the impairment standard you mentioned. I'm wondering what is the what is the language regarding medical use? I mean, we do have people who use marijuana for pain relief or whatever. So I'm wondering, if there's some provision about that in the legislation.
Well, this legislation is about the legalization of adult use that is not connected to medical use. That has its own set of statutes that are already in place. So this, the challenge here is, these folks will not have a medical cannabis card, right? They're just, if they just test positive, they don't have a card, then the question is, what can we do as an employer? Where are our limits, right? Because according to the state of Maryland, it's not illegal to use this product anymore. It is still illegal at the federal level. So this creates a very tight area for us, with some tight guardrails for what we can do and how we can do it. And we're trying to sort of signal to the state that, what they do or what they tell us we can do has to be balanced against the fact that it's still illegal at the federal level. Did that quite get to your question?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's, basically it sounds like if you have a medical card, then it doesn't fall under this at all. It falls someplace else. And that's really what, I was interested in.
Right. And in our specific case, if someone does test positive and they do have a medical card, that's fine, except we still have to look at the behavior that led to the test. If the behavior was that the person was acting very erratically, then we need to find out, okay, what is going on, even if you do have a medical card. Or if the case is that the person was in an accident and caused the accident. Again, we have to drill down and figure out, what is going on, even if you do have a medical card, because whether it's a medical card for cannabis or it's another drug, if the drug is affecting the way the person is performing their job, and particularly in a safety capacity, that still has to be dealt with. Just because you have a prescription doesn't mean you can come to work impaired.
Right.
Okay. That's good. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioners, other questions? No, thank you. Ms. Borden, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Commissioners, there's no other items before us. Any other new business that anyone has? If not, then without objection, we are adjourned. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.